Welcome to the Wealth Effect. Today, we welcome Nancy Ward. Nancy is a dedicated financial coach who helps clients break free from credit card debt without relying on traditional budgeting methods. Nancy empowers families to prioritize their financial well being with personalized strategies for a secure financial future. Thank you for being on podcast, Nancy.
Thank you for having me.
I did see that you grew up in Cincinnati, and funny enough, this is the second person from Ohio I've interviewed. So how was growing up in Cincinnati?
Well, funny enough, I grew up in Cleveland
Oh,
and went to school in Cincinnati, and I've been here ever since with college. So this is feels like my second home, but it's a great place to live, great place to raise your kids, and the weather, you have all four seasons, so it's always good.
yeah, I spent a couple of months in Cleveland, and it is a different place. Very,
Yeah.
I think, unique compared to other cities that are bigger cities around the country. But I think it is
Mhm.
a really good place to be at.
Yeah.
What did you
Yeah. Ohio is
study?
a little different than California, let's say.
It is. What did you study at the University of Cincinnati?
I was in business administration and had a major in marketing. I did take some finance classes and accounting classes, and I was considering doing a double major with finance and just something about it. I don't know if life happened or I just didn't grab onto the books as well as I thought, but I've always been a numbers person. So that was another reason why I was a little bit geared toward doing some either accounting or some finance.
And did your passion for like money arise from like childhood or from college? Did you grow up talking about like finances with your family?
Actually, no. That, you know, I was a child of the 80s, was born in the 70s, but, my life was in the 80s. And we really didn't talk about money. The only thing I remember about having money or not having money is the fact that my dad was a construction worker. And I knew that he was working on different sites and then he'd be on unemployment for 2 weeks to a month or what have you. So I know that my mom was very savvy as far as watching her finances because you had money coming in, and then when you're on unemployment, the bills still need to be paid. And we didn't have credit cards. I think they had a Sears card back at the time. And if you didn't have the money, you just didn't buy. And that might be another reason why our Gen Xers are loving spending is because when we grew up, we didn't have all that extra money. We didn't go to the shopping malls once or twice a week. There wasn't as much commerce back then. And I'm not talking about e-commerce. I'm just talking about just general commerce. In order to go to a mall, it was at least a 20-minute drive for me. Now I can two exits up on the highway and I've got Target and you name it, any fast food place, restaurants, things like that. So times were so different back then. And I guess it comes back to I really always loved math. And I'll embarrass myself for the moment, but I remember being in my basement. We had a huge chalkboard, probably about the size of what's behind me, and we would get books from the school when they expired. So the school would get new textbooks, and then they would sell the old ones. And I remember having math books. And here's my embarrassing part: I taught invisible kids in my basement math. So I've always been math centric and data driven. So you know, fast forward, I was in credit card debt before I got married. I was $40,000 in credit card debt. And it's like, how did I even do that? I still sometimes question myself, but I've gone through that process where I paid off that debt. And after the divorce, I said, there's no way I am going to be down in that road again. And I've made some changes. And so that's the reason why I decided to become a financial coach because I could help people, which I've always been good at. And I like numbers. And so I was able to help other people so they can not necessarily live the life that they want, but have their money work for them in the right places and kind of get rid of all of that debt that everybody has.
And how was it becoming an entrepreneur for starting this coaching business? Was it tough at the beginning? Because just like anything, it's always
Mm.
always a rough start. How did you keep it going?
I started when I was working full time, and I started this up in 2021. Of course, I was at a remote job because of COVID. That I got the job during 2020, and I don't know, I just decided to go for it because I felt, my friends would ask me questions because they knew I was good with numbers and so forth like that, and I guess I kind of ripped the band-aid off and started this all up, and because I looked at it and said, well, I'll show you really quick. um Back in 2020, I was journaling myself. Every week that I would send in a payment, I would correspond that with coloring in a color. And some of us still like to color as adults with the adult coloring books. But the point was is that every time I was able to color in another box, it was just one step forward to paying off that debt. And I decided to take it and split it up to how many weeks it would take to get paid, which is a different concept than most people go for. But I had money coming in at different times of the month, but my bills were always on the 25th or on the 2nd or on the 5th. So if I didn't have enough money right before that payment had to come out, I might have overdraft. And I said, again, I don't want to do this. I want to be financially sound. I want to have all of these checks and balances in order. And that's why I decided to do it on a weekly basis. So when I came up with my idea of being a financial coach, I was like, I'll call it weekly debt plan because I was able to get out of debt so easily by paying small amounts of money every single month. So if I paid $25 for a bill and the minimum payment was 49, you can do easy math that I at least paid off my minimum payments and I put more down towards the principal. But knowing at that end of that X amount of weeks, the whole thing was paid off interest free.
Wow, I really like your journal. That's a very different way than usually go about my finances because I was an accountant for a couple years. I mainly
Yeah.
worked on Excel, so all my stuff isn't color coded. It's all just a spreadsheet of numbers. And for most people, they can't even like it's not legible or understandable what they're seeing. But for me, I like clearly see it, and it's hard for me to explain that to people. I'm like, oh yeah, you see this number? Yeah, that number means this, but it's not as clear cut as yours is. How do you go about teaching people financial literacy? Because it's very different than what I would expect my approach is.
Yeah, and that's so interesting. I mean, when people ask me, "Oh, do you do investments?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Let's take a step back. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial planner. I work with your bank account and your credit card. I don't do insurance. I don't do real estate. Don't do investments. Don't do retirement because I want you to get your money first. Then you can go talk to your financial planner or advisor. Go from there. Um, but I approach it as having that first look of what's going on. And you don't have to answer the number, but yes or no right now. Do you know your own credit score at the moment?
Yeah, I funny enough,
I figured you would.
I actually check my credit score and my bank account twice a day. Even though I know your credit score doesn't change at all, I don't know why. It just became such a habit for me to check.
I'm in that club too. You're exactly right. Money's not going to change as of the first thing in the morning, unless obviously you withdraw your money out of your bank account. But yeah, so I work with people. So that going back to that question, a lot of people have no clue what their credit score is. Or if they do, they might say, oh, it's like 700 something, 600 something. They might know that. Then so I work with my clients and say, let's get an idea of what's going on. Where are you at right now? If you decided to lose weight, what's the first thing that you do? You hop on the scale. So that's the first step I work with my clients is let's step on the financial scale. What are your credit card debts? How much are you making on an average month? Because sometimes it might change whether it's your job or bonus or, side hustle, what have you. But it's also looking at how much do you owe on your credit cards? How much do you have for loans? how much do you have to have in your bank account every single month in order to pay your bills? Because you can't pay your mortgage on a credit card. You can, but if you do, oh my gosh, you're in a world of hurt worse than you thought. So that's the first step is we look at what's coming out of your bank account. Because when's the last time you looked at your checkbook? Okay, you might have, but when's the last time you wrote every single transaction in a checkbook? We don't have that anymore. We go to our app, we look inside and go, yep, everything looks right, move on with our day. So that's where we're looking at those numbers and saying, okay, all right, we've got the numbers, but what do you want? Do you want to save money for college? Do you want to go on an awesome vacation and you want to make sure that it's going to be a debt-free vacation? Are you trying to pay down your credit cards? Do you not have credit cards and now you want to take money and instead of spending it on stuff, you want to take that money and you want to build a X fund or want to fix something in your house and so forth. We look at those, the goals of what you want to do, so we can make that money work for you and your goals. So you have a purpose for your money.
Yeah, that's a very good and interesting point because I have very little experience with debt because
Mm-hmm.
straight out of college, I didn't have any debt. I had a credit card, but I didn't accumulate any debt. I always knew that you just pay it off, even though I didn't
Yep.
like need it much. I'm like, how do people like you mentioned? How do people keep getting in debt? I'm like, you just pay it off. You hold yourself back from overspending what the limit is or what it is. So a lot of these follow up questions are going to be related to debt since that's your specialty, and I'm not as experienced. Even though my credit score, I have a perfect credit score just because I have managed all my debt. My credit cards are all paid off. I have a mortgage that is paid off, is getting paid. So there's nothing
Yeah.
like going wrong with it. But I think a lot of our audience are not in that similar boat. So these questions are geared towards like how to understand that.
Yes, that is so true. And one of the other tasks that I work with my clients in the beginning is to look at the last few months' statements and write down how much did you charge, how much did you pay off, and what was your interest payment. And that's the kicker of it. Debt sometimes isn't so bad if you have to, wait another paycheck or two in order to pay it off in full. But the problem is that people, like you said, they're spending, they're not thinking of the ramifications of not paying off the bill at the end of the billing cycle. And when you look at those numbers and you have a $249 minimum payment, but only $140 is $140 is interest, you're in theory paying $140 a month for the convenience of not paying off your credit card. Or if you really want to enjoy the United States culture, you're basically tipping the credit card $141 a month for nothing. And sometimes that it's like, whoa, mind blown, going, wow, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're paying for the convenience of not paying it off on time.
Yeah, people just think that, oh, that's the payment. Like that's fine. They don't like put a name towards it or like try to attach it to something that makes it more impactful that they grasp that it's not right. It's not a good idea to be paying these amounts. That
Right.
it's just spending money where you could have been saving it if you planned it out right.
Well, yeah, and that's what's ending up happening is that, they'll come and talk to me and say, "Well, I paid my minimum payment. I feel like I'm getting nowhere on my credit card." It's like, yeah, because you're putting $100 towards the principal, $141 you're paying off that interest payment. But if it only goes down $100, you're still going to have that 22, 24, 29, 32% tip tax, whatever you want to call it, inconvenience fee in order to get that done. And I actually had one client who's like, I was putting extra $25 towards every card. She's like, I realized really quickly it was eating up my money and it wasn't getting me anywhere. I said, you're correct. And if you have that plan, and that's where I think having the plan is really the important part, because once you see what's going on, then you need to make a plan. So in that person's suggestion or situation, it's okay if you're putting $25 each to every credit card. Take that four times 25, put that extra $100 towards one credit card. Pay your minimum payment plus an extra $100. That's what's going to give you momentum versus just paying off the minimums. And if you look at your statements on the first page of every statement, no matter what you got, whether it's a Lowe's card or a loan for whatever, the simple credit card type loans, and your credit card statements on that first page of your statement, it's going to tell you if you only pay the minimum payments, it's going to take you 7, 8, 10 years to pay this off. And then you're also stressed out because I don't have another credit card because I've got to buy groceries. How am I going to find that? So yes, having that plan to pay that down is also going to help with everything mentally and physically and emotionally in order for you to have a better life going on.
And that also takes away from the stress of always having to think about your debt, because that takes like
Right.
a hold every day. You might always be thinking about it, and takes the joy out of a lot of everyday things or grocery shopping. You constantly have
Yeah.
that in mind. What do you think
Right.
would be someone's first approach to budgeting? Because I know budgeting is always a big topic for like paying down debt, but most people don't really enjoy it or know how to really go about it.
Right. And the reason why I don't talk about budgeting is there are some people who just don't want to budget. And to be fair, if you wanted to budget, you'd be on Etsy or you'd be having your own spreadsheet. You'd be pounding the pavement in order to make sure that you only spend $75 at the grocery store. But what happens is that we restrict ourselves so much that that stresses us out. And if you all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm having a family dinner and I need to go buy $100 worth of groceries. Well, they want my budget, and then we get mad at ourselves, and we're get depressed and all this other stuff. So I just wipe out budgeting because it's it's so stressful. It's like counting calories if you're on a diet. You know what to do. You need to watch your weight. You need to watch what you're eating. You need to exercise, drink more water, those types of things, get better sleep. Same as this. You need to look at your spending. So instead of teaching my clients budgeting, I am having them just do an analysis. Look at the last 3 months. Your credit cards or your debit cards, any of those places, you can go online and you can download your transactions, or you can look at them online. You can print off the statement and things like that. What's important about that is that you're going to look at it in that overall billing cycle. You spent X amount of dollars at the grocery store, X amount of dollars dining out, entertainment, things like that, X amount of dollars on shopping, X amount of dollars on whatever the categories that is. And that's where is an epiphany for my clients, because they go, wow, I had no idea that this past month I spent $700 dining out. I don't tell my clients to stop drinking their Starbucks coffee. I don't tell them to stop doing anything. But again, go back to those priorities. Is is eating out a priority for you? Can you have that self-control? Now that you know the category, okay, I need to like really chill that out. Maybe I need to buy a little bit more groceries, and then I need to cook a little bit more at home, or take out, bring my lunch in, or if you want to do the takeout, get the extra large pizza and have leftovers for the next 2 days to take to work, which is $0. So it's one of those things where they can still enjoy what they want to spend. But I think a lot of people who have a lot of debt are not realizing what they are spending their money on, because it's so easy to pull out of the wallet and tap and go. Because years ago, we didn't have credit cards. You had cash in a checkbook, and you had that checkbook and you wrote down every transaction and you minused it from your balance and said, "Ooh, I don't have enough money left. I can't buy this." That's what stopped you. Now there's nothing stopping you. You put it on the credit card, the only thing that's stopping you is your credit limit.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's how I help people not have to worry about budgeting. But it's like I said, it is a big epiphany for people who are going through that process.
yeah. I tell people to budget, but I don't budget myself because I always think of it like how you do, and I think that's an
Yeah.
advanced way of budgeting where you
Right.
start thinking about the spending itself, not the actual money of it that you're spending, to really get into, is it worth the money, or is the money going to a place, not just the amount, but the actual value you're getting from the item, whether it's food or anything.
Right.
And I think that's a very hard thing for a lot of people to come about with. And how do you
Yeah.
think people
I,
should go about like asking for help or seeking out other methods of reducing their debt, controlling, and also support? Because I know it's like taboo to go ask for money help, especially because even I avoid it. Like it hurts your ego. It really says that, oh, you don't got it together. How do you like approach that to support people?
well, I have a Facebook group, I have an email, and I actually have some new products coming out. Do you mind if I mention it?
Oh yeah, go ahead. We'll have links to
Great.
everything below. So if anything
Okay.
that she mentions is like catches your attention for our audience, it will be linked down below.
Perfect. Well, what I love about this is my newest item. It's called the Money Snapshot. And it's exactly what I was just talking about, where you're going to go through, you've got some education on one side, you've got some places to fill out as well. And what's I talk about financial goals. You're going to write down some simple financial goals. You're going to start tracking your credit score, and I give some advice on how to improve your credit score. You're going to put in some information about your credit card statements. So then you can see, as I was mentioning before, let me just grab this page here. As I was mentioning before, like this whole page, we talked about that every month. You're going to put those statements in and you're going to see that information going across. And again, it's just one of those having it visually in your hand. But this what I like about this is that again, going back to you have your what are you having out of your bank account every month, and then you have a calendar in order to put that information there. Circle those dates in green that says, hey, this is my payday. So this is the first step. So it's a small book that is going to help you just look at your finances. That's a very low price point that you don't have to work. You can just, it's like a DIY book, a workbook, and you can work on it yourself. Because again, if you're not willing to go step on that scale and make that change and rip off the band-aid and say, okay, I need to take control of my finances. I really want to use my money for something else instead of paying off past purchases. That's where this comes into play because again, you've got you've got this action that you want to take and this just helps guide you. I also have one-on-one coaching, so I can look at the coaching or the numbers with the client and look at it and say, how can we make these changes? They're going to make the changes. I always say we because it's like a group effort helping them. Um, but then they're going to get some advice from me and they're going to have that accountability. And I think that's another thing too is that you're right. Money is so taboo. You don't want to talk to your friends unless you have a really good best friend that you're willing to talk to that stuff about. You're not willing to talk to your family because they're going to go, I told you so, you shouldn't have bought that. It's like I don't need that in my life either. And that's what's great about working with a financial coach is that it's judgment free. I like I said, if you want to drink that coffee every single day, I'm all for it. I'm not gonna knock it. This is your money, but we're gonna look at other places where you can cut down those budgets. I said budget, those different spending categories, or realize it. And I've had some clients come back and say, "Oh my gosh, Nancy, I was about ready to buy this, and you were in my head, and I said, nope, I can't buy this today because it is not focused on what my goals are." So that's what's nice about too is being okay with admitting you need help. And it's so true because there's so many things that in life that you might need to have that extra help, whether it's this or in your marriage or you're like, okay, fine, I just can't do it anymore. I need to hire a house cleaner. And then you get embarrassed because you're like, oh my gosh, my friends know I have a house cleaner. You need to do what's best for you. And if working on your finances is best for you because you want your money to stretch further, that's where hiring a coach can really help out and move the needle faster than you trying to say, yeah, I can stop spending. And then you really don't because you've got somebody who's accountable to you.
And what does your typical client look like? Like, are they heavily in debt, like mildly? How does your like average person you're helping out come into you like for help?
Most of them do have credit card debt. I've had some clients have had one credit card and just about maxed it out. And I've had another client who's had about 10 credit cards plus a few credit lines. So it all just depends. And it's sometimes it's just relative on how much that you make as well. Because the more that you make, the more that you feel like you can spend. And then, oh, yeah, I'll open up a card over here. Oh, yeah, I'm going to get a jewelry purchase. I'll open up that card. Oh, I need to get something from Lowe's. I'll open up that. And you're continuously opening and opening and opening and opening. But the key is if you can have them open, great. Try not to max them out. And that's probably in your situation where, like you said, you've got a perfect credit score, you've got credit cards, you use them just to keep them active or use the points on the credit cards, but also pay them off at the end of the month. So you've got open credits, but it's good credits.
Yeah, and also there's like also good and bad debt, just like mortgages are good debt. And
Yeah.
typically if you can afford it, a house, just not overdo it on the house if it's not like generating some type of rental income because that makes up a majority of people's expenses. If they, like how you said, go overboard, if they earn a lot more, they start spending more, they think they can afford a certain lifestyle, or people
Mm-hmm.
expect them to have a certain lifestyle. So then
Right.
they accumulate all this debt just to show it off to the people.
And then the last few years with inflation and groceries and life, all of a sudden they're like, okay, I thought I could handle this, but now I'm a little bit overwhelmed with more expenses than the money coming in.
Yeah. And I did
Yeah.
see that you started a small series on tax preparation, like getting people ready. Um, how do you think that? Because I know I worked as an accountant and I actually prepare my own taxes. I don't file them myself because I still don't think I'm like extremely smart. So always have my CPA like double check everything, make sure that I'm doing it right. How could you explain someone the importance of not only tax preparation but tax strategy, preparing in advance, everything?
Yes. And I came up with that because I'm an entrepreneur as well, but I've also been a direct seller for 28 years. So I've been doing 1099 for 28 years. So I'm very familiar with it. And what's nice about it is your taxes allow you to reduce your tax burden when you have a 1099 because most of the times you have those expenses that go with your business and so forth. So what I was doing is I did have a workshop at one point, which I might have to do that again come end of the year when people are thinking about how to get ready for their tax season. But what I really focused on was a lot of our entrepreneurs or direct sellers specifically are putting all of their expenses on a business on their personal credit cards, and then they're forgetting about it, and they're not looking at those credit cards and saying, "Oh, that was a something for my business, a charge for my business," and then keeping that all organized. And I love being organized. I love numbers, so it all kind of goes together. But what I was providing was a tax ready system because you're again you're putting this on a personal credit card, but if you don't print off the receipt or put it in a certain file folder or things like that, come tax time, you might miss out on some of those good expenses that you needed to put up on your business for your Schedule C. So that's what I was helping people with as far as a very small business. I mean, if you're at a point where you have accounts payable, you need to have the accountant. It's not going to this system's not going to work for you because you're going to have a better system with your accounting, and you might have Quicken or any of those types of software packages in order to provide for your CPA. But I was trying to help the little guys who have that little small side hustle and want to take a little bit of tax advantage in order to bring down that W-2 burden.
Yeah, that is definitely helpful, especially because I don't think a lot of people that have never started business know that with your business, and even if you have a job, um, it's more stable job, you can
Yes.
offset all the income and basically pay no taxes to the point to get a refund just by
Hmm.
properly tracking all your expenses, properly like researching, if not like once presented to your accountant, because I think at a certain point, if your business is making money, you should not be doing your own taxes. You gotta find someone because there's too much complication in taxes. I'm like, you can study all you want, but if you're not a CPA, you're not gonna know every single detail, and it could lose you thousands of dollars or future benefit, or the opposite. You could get in trouble by
Yes.
listening to some of these TikTokers or influencers give misleading information that on the surface, word by word on the taxaway might be right, but the implication of it, they're applying it
Hmm.
wrong. And that's very dangerous for a lot of people.
Right. And even just that quick little note that you can have dinner and pay for a dinner with you and the client, it's only going to be 50% write offable. So it's not the 100%
It used to
because
be.
you have to eat anyways. That's the way the government thinks about it. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty smart.
It used to be 100% during COVID. And I remember when that was a thing, so many businesses were like having these lavish dinners to impress their clients because they knew it's a write off. It's on the books.
Yeah, you got there's a few stipulations for these things, such as your home office expense and your cell phone and so forth. But for the most part, you go and buy a ream of paper, that's 100% put it on the taxes as a write-off. So, yeah.
Yeah, also like another one is mileage for cars. I'm like,
Yes.
there you could use it to a certain point, like depending on business. I'm like, some people might not know that and never keep track of it. I'm like, that mileage is a big deal if you're driving quite a bit. It adds up really fast.
That is true. I is one of my other side hustles. I have a Macari store. It's like eBay. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I have
Yeah.
a Macari store. And when I sell stuff, I've got plenty of extra stuff in the house. I put it up on Macari to sell. When I sell it, I have the person pay for the shipping. I just print off the label, put it all together. But my mileage from my house to the post office or to the UPS or to the FedEx, I put that on my taxes. And I don't even know. I want to say it's more than 60 cents. It might be 70 cents. I don't know.
It's like
I do
64.
TurboTax. So, yeah, so I do TurboTax. It just calculates it all for me. But so that helps to offset my income from the Macari, even though the 1099K. I know we're going over some people's heads here, but 1099K is still not in place yet. But I just decided to be honest and put it out there as a 1099 type business Schedule C, but I'm able to take my mileage that I drop off at the post office and take that off my taxes because that is part of the business is delivering the package to the person.
And I think another interesting concept that normal people that aren't as financially aware is the concept of on paper, on your taxes, your business might be losing money, but your
Mm-hmm.
cash intake might actually be positive. So you're taking in real cash, but on tax like paper, you're losing money. Like everything's going like negative because of all the deductions. And that's a very
Mm-hmm.
hard concept to grasp that people might not understand because like how are you losing money but you have cash. And I think that's always a good like random point to bring up to people that want to be entrepreneurs or like start these small side gigs to help them
Mm-hmm.
like get out of debt or progress even more to make it something they can live off of.
Yes. Yeah, and it's interesting as there have been times where I've put all my expenses in. I'm like, oh, I did pretty well as far as getting close to zero as far as paying the taxes. But once I put that mileage in, whoop, there goes my refund. I get a little bit more, and TurboTax automatically calculates it while I'm doing my TurboTax. So yes, you're right. You've got your expenses, but the the mileage really does push it over the edge, depending on how much, obviously, depending on how much mileage that you have, but that does take into consideration at the end of all your other expenses for the business.
And I think that's why it's always important to go like for specialties like a CPA's for taxes and for a coach like you for debt. Like even though I'm more of an investor, I don't know how to manage or help someone go through debt as well as someone like you that's more experienced with that. And we all gotta find like the right resources to help us with that.
Yes, find that person with that superpower because they're going to help you out of your situation faster than you trying to figure it out and go to Google and go to YouTube and so forth. So definitely, yeah, going towards an expert, no matter what the category is.
I also saw on your website that you have a free financial roadmap survival guide. Can you explain more on that?
Yes, it gives you 7 tips of what to look for, and those were some of the things that we talked about today. Was looking at your finances, having those the bill paying, and so forth. So it's just a small little PDF just to get you motivated to say, okay, maybe I really should look at my finances. So thank you. That is a free resource on my website.
Yeah, I always like highlighting like the different type of resources because different people are like attracted to different things online. Like I'm not as attracted to like colorful, like written things. I'm more of a Excel computer type of person, but I know
Mhm.
other people are cannot imagine it on a computer. They rather see it, write it down because it has more of an impact writing the numbers down by hand. And that's always good to adapt to your situation, not try to be, oh, like these professionals, high earners only use Excel. Like, no, that works for them, but you got to make sure things work for you, especially at a lower level. Like, maybe once you hit like $100,000 in income, you can switch to these more complicated, more detailed tools.
Right. And the other thing too is that there's people who, if you wanted to use Excel and if you booger up a cell and mess up a formula, it messes up your numbers. So there's also something to be said about that. And that's why if you want to work with spreadsheets and so forth, that's why there's so many resources out there that people have built on Etsy or you can get on Google and so forth, because that's what, if that makes that person comfortable, great. But I'm looking at it, and what's also nice about this too is that you're writing down the numbers, and you're right. There's something about taking it from your brain to your pen to paper, and also visualizing it at a different time frame in order to have the impact on it. But what I'm also looking at too is how many of us are going to grab our phone and you're like, oh, I need to check my bank account. Oh yeah, I got 5 emails. Oh, I need to do that. You're like, why did I come here? You totally got distracted. So if you take that information and you write it down, you have it in writing, and you can talk to your spouse if you want to take this into bed or take it to dinner and say, hey, we need to talk about our finances. Let's look at our numbers. There's no distraction on the phone. This is what you're looking at. You're talking about what's right there in front of you. It's like running a report every single month for your finances. So then you have a better grasp of where you are and where you're going. You can see it visually on a calendar to say, oh, in 2 weeks, we've got this payment due. Every 6 months, people have to pay their property taxes or their car insurance or things like that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I don't have the money for it. Well, you know what? If you would have planned, even on a simple calendar, that's what's going to help you to visualize it and have it in your head and not have to worry about, oh gosh, where do I have to scramble to get that money? Because you already have a plan set because you've been putting money into a savings account for your car insurance or anything like that. That is where having it down on paper and visualizing it and flipping through it, but also going back and saying, wow, this is where I was at the beginning of the year. I had $7,200 in debt. Now it's the end of the year and I'm at $4,600. Pat the back on me because I have done what I needed to do in order to reduce my credit card debt, and my sanity is much better and my stress levels are lower and things like that. So it really is, the proof is in black and white.
Yeah, and also I think another helpful thing for people, even if you're not in debt, knowing the strategies ahead of time or even planning out, even if you're always paying off your
Yes.
credit card, is very helpful before you start getting off a track. And like you've mentioned, there's more complicated things as you go along in life, whether it's car payments, mortgages, like they might be straight out of college or high school and listening to this, that no debt, like they think they'll be fine, but it's prepping ahead of time before things start piling up, because then you'll start soon realizing your your check is gonna come at the wrong day before your or after your credit cards
Yeah,
due. Things are off timing, like everything. No one is gonna sync the world for you. So if you gotta plan it out, know how you're gonna plan out yourself through your month.
exactly. And let's just take a story of, a husband and wife who are debt free. They're in their 40s or 50s, and all of a sudden their child says, "We're going to have a wedding, and we want to help. We want you to help pay for it." Well, if it's not in their budget or if it's not in their, financial outlook, well, I guess they need to start saving for that wedding. So, just because you don't have debt doesn't mean that you don't have expenses.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's always important to understand what tools are also available when managing debt, because I know debt is evolving. Like credit cards are not just the only things that are available as like credit lines, and they're easily accessible nowadays just to
Mm-hmm.
anyone, even people that are have no job. They can get access to these debt tools, and to learn to not only understand them but manage them if they need to use them in a proper
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yes.
And
Yes.
have you seen that, like where people are coming in debt with these new like style of like credit lines or like other borrowing positions?
I've had some people who have borrowed on their 401ks while they're still working, and then that payment is being taken directly out of their paycheck, so they don't
Mm.
actually see that payment. But if they used it to pay down a bill or college or things like that, I've also seen people with home equity line of credits, also called HELOCs, in order to, again, have that extra money in order to spend on paying down credit cards or enhancing their home with a new deck or remodel or things like that. So beyond that, I haven't seen anything else yet.
Oh, that's very interesting, because I think it is gonna start evolving faster as these new generation of people coming out of college gonna like might hear it online to leverage their positions on anything they get access to, or whether they get some type of like property from their family. Like it might
Mm-hmm.
be hectic in a few years once they get access to these tools. Just like the older Gen Zs like myself, like are going coming into the workplace, we're accessing different things at different times now, and there's going to be a shift of how people manage their debt in the future.
Exactly, exactly. And nowadays, I mean, I still get emails from my credit card saying, "Would you like a personal loan?" I'm like, "No, thanks. I don't need another. I don't need extra money for that. Not to pay you 9%, but thanks anyways." And no, I'm good. I don't need that. And unfortunately, there's that temptation. And when you have those temptations, whether it's your credit card or whether it's, Target saying, "Here's what's on sale this week," click the unsubscribe.
Yeah, a lot of people get stuck on like what they're seeing in ads, and I fall for it too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get those Amazon ads, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that's so nice. I could get it, and it isn't too much. I'm like, oh, but then that gets me buying, and I return a lot of stuff on Amazon because I'm like, kind of regretted it now. At least I could have like 30 days to return it.
Yes, I love that policy of 30 days. And then November 1st, you have until January 31st because of the holidays coming up. So, but yeah, there are many times where I'm like, did this really work out? And it's nice to know that you have that 30 days. And if it doesn't work, then get it out as soon as possible. That's definitely the key. And then I usually say refund it back to my credit card instead of putting it in my Amazon account, because that, again, it's just too much temptation.
Yeah.
And put stuff in the cart and save for later and let it sit there and figure out whether or not you really need that item. And there's a lot of it in my save for later, and sometimes I'll go through it. I'm like, yeah, 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 that project's over. I figured something else out, and I just delete, because it's so tempting, especially with Amazon. You order it and it's here either, you know 10 o'clock tonight, 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's just too tempting. Too tempting.
It is. I remember I ordered something and it was here in like 4 hours or five. I was like, wow, like that just made me want to spend more. But I'm like, oh, I know I gotta make sure I stop and don't look at it as much because I know there's so much, there's everything at at your fingertips. All the products you can possibly imagine, you can buy online and
Hmm.
have delivered relatively fast nowadays.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when it says it's not going to be here for another 2 weeks, it's like, well, let me see what other vendors have it.
Yeah, I remember years ago when things would take a month to come, and I would be like, "Oh, we ordered this?" Like you would forget what you ordered because it took so long to get to your house.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But yeah, it's amazing how if you look at that shopping or tally it up as far as how much you spend on Amazon, that could be a big category as well.
Yeah,
Because
especially
you know it's not groceries unless you do Amazon Fresh, but it's most of the stuff is stuff, and that's where the small business owners have to be cautious and make sure they get that receipt out of that Amazon and put it with their tax forms, so when the tax time comes around they can go, oh, okay, well, I bought some copy paper from Amazon, not from Office Depot but from Amazon. You have to have it clearly marked so then you can put it on your taxes at the end of the year.
yeah, it's always about preparing, try and keep everything in order because it all matters in the end.
Oh yeah.
And do you have any
Yes.
final words for our audience?
Finances take a little bit of time. Just take small steps because small steps are going to go to great results. Like I said, just losing weight, you're not going to lose 20 pounds in the next week, just like you're not going to lose $5,000 in credit card unless you got a bonus. So it's going to take time, but keep the progress going. And that's the most important part, whether it's putting a little bit of money away or sending a little extra money every single month to one credit card, being consistent and having those small steps, do what you can, and that's what's going to help you move the needle.
Well, well said. Well, thank you for being on podcast. If anyone in the audience is interested in what you heard, I'll have her links down below in the description and feel free to reach out to her.
Great. Thanks so much for having me today.
Yes, thank you.